Black Africans have been a visible presence in European life for centuries. Alessandro de Medici, Duke of Florence, head of state, husband to a daughter of the Holy Roman Emperor and half-brother to the Queen of France. Alessandro was born in 1511 or 1512. His mother was an enslaved African woman. His father was Lorenzo II, Duke of Urbino, the last legitimate heir to the main branch of the Medici family. There were rumors at the time that Alessandro's real father was Lorenzo's cousin Giulio de Medici, who became Pope Clement VII. This would be irresistible to a writer of fiction, making Alessandro perhaps the only person in history to be the offspring of a pope and an African slave. As a writer of history, Catherine Fletcher accepts the more likely story that he was Lorenzo's son. Even so, Clement's devotion to Alessandro brought the young prince many of his luckiest breaks. His cousin and lifelong rival Ippolito de Medici, the other illegitimate hope of the dynasty, unwilling to accept a position as a cardinal while Alessandro became a duke. It would not end there. This account of the scions' struggle against each other and the world bursts with stabbings, poisonings, duels, firearm shootouts and people being run through with swords. Fletcher's approach is scholarly yet dramatic, immersed in Renaissance glamour. In 1530, Alessandro attended the first coronation of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V in Bologna. Fletcher sets the scene. Alessandro's men wore livery of shimmering peacock purple and dark, fiery red. He wore dark damask lined with wolfskin and was honored to carry the orb, a golden globe adorned with gems dividing it into Asia, Africa and Europe. Perhaps Alessandro's racially mixed appearance symbolically underlined the emperor's claim to global power as he took the Iron Crown. Charles V became close to Alessandro and allowed his own illegitimate daughter, Margaret of Austria, to marry him. Had it resulted in living heirs, this Medici-Habsburg match might have had major implications for history. Alessandro's half-sister Catherine de Medici, his father's only illegitimate child, had already married into the French Valois family, the Habsburgs' great rivals, and would go on to become the most powerful woman in Europe. It was the misfortune of Alessandro de Medici to be assassinated twice. Fletcher writes, first with a sword, then with a pen. Accounts of his life by those who benefited from his death, and by generations of European historians who despised his race, portrayed him as ugly, stupid and cruel, a tyrant and a murderer. He probably did order a murder or two, but that was hardly out of turn for a Renaissance prince. Fletcher does a thorough job of debunking all the other allegations, creating a portrait of an intelligent, politically skilled man with a sense of social responsibility, providing money or properties for poor families in Florence. He loved dogs, hunting, and art. His mistresses included a wealthy widow who gave him 2 children. Alessandro seems to have had a defiant sense of humor about his origins and status. His wardrobe contained an elaborate Turkish costume. His contemporary Henry VIII also dressed up as a Turk, but he was legitimate and white. The King of England was not inviting a shockingly direct comparison to the Ottoman sultans, whose mothers were slaves. Are Alessandro and his courtiers mocking the critics of the Duke's slow birth? Fletcher asks. For a carnival in 1534, Alessandro and his group following dressed as gypsies and peasants. Another cocked at those who mocked his favor for the lower classes. It is as if Alessandro and his court were saying, yes, we know what you say about us, and we don't care much. This lightheartedness may have been Alessandro's undoing. In 1537, his cousin Lorenzo de Medici offered to facilitate an affair with a noblewoman. The Duke let his guard down and waited for the lady in Lorenzo's chamber, but was ambushed and hacked to death. He was still only in his mid-20s. His reputation did not begin to recover until he was championed by African-American writers in the early 20th century. Catherine Fletcher's biography is a tremendous step forward in our knowledge of this intriguing man. Perhaps even the casting directors of Hollywood will one day admit that there were in fact black people in 16th century Europe, and some of their stories are as gripping as any Shakespeare movie.